What's going on, everybody? It's Kellen Nitro for Nitromaniac TV's Wrestling Unlimited, coming at you with another NITRO'S Take from a great event that took place on February 29th, 2020. That's right, a rare leap year day event on pay-per-view, and it was AEW's first pay-per-view offering of the new year. It was AEW Revolution from the Wintrust Arena in Chicago, Illinois, and it could take all the rest of those revolutions and you could throw it out the window. Extreme Revolution, WWA Revolution, whatever. This show was the revolution. This show was lit. These are my thoughts on the show. Feel free to put yours below in the comments and we'll compare notes. So I was trying to figure out who the disembodied female voice was that was voicing these promos for Revolution, and then it was Dasha Fuentes, or Dasha Crate, or Dasha Gonzalez, however she's pronouncing her last name now. I think it's Dasha Gonzalez now on the AEW Dark, but that's totally her voice doing all the narration in the opening packages and that stuff. So Dasha welcomes us to Revolution. It was a great opening package. It kind of reminds me of when TNA was good. TNA all the time, while Keith Mitchell was the driving production force behind TNA during the mid-2000s when they were really hot, had a really hot period when they had just debuted on Spike, and we're putting out those awesome pay-per-view events every year on on pay-per-view and so on and so forth. But same kind of group of production people involved with this too, which is pretty spectacular. We take a look at the brand new set. Really cool. Of course, the chandelier is still the centerpiece of the entire set. I call it the chandelier because it kind of looks like it. So our opening contest was the natural Dustin Rhodes taking on Jake Hagar tonight on WWE Main Event. Nah, I'm just kidding. It's one guy who has reinvented himself since debuting in AEW, i.e. Dustin Rhodes, kind of getting back that blue chip swagger he had in his WCW run a little bit. And one guy looking to do the same, Jake Hagar. This is his AEW in-ring match debut. Of course, since October 2nd, he has been kind of the hired voiceless muscle of the inner circle. So this was kind of a really cool look to see what he can do still in the ring. And of course, we're talking about a former WWE champion there at that point. So Jake getting some cheap heat at ringside, making out with his wife. Yes, I believe his wife's name is Catalina Hagar, and she was ringside, first row, just beyond the barricade there and that stuff throughout this entire match. The match spills out to the outside early. Hagar nails Rhodes with a big lariat to the outside and is in control. And then Jake Hagar stops to talk to his wife, is hit by Rhodes, and Rhodes lays a lip lock on Mrs. Hagar. I lolled. This match in itself kind of had an old school WWF pace to it, like really old school, like talking, early 90s Superstars Wrestling Challenge look to it. But for two heavyweight guys that wrestled the heavyweight style, it was perfectly passable. Hagar gets back in control though soon thereafter. Pendulum swinging back and forth, and that was kind of the hallmark of those matches, those real competitive matches back in the early 90s on WWF television. So 2 count with a gut-wrench powerbomb by Hagar. Rhodes launches Hagar off a splash attempt out of the ring, and Hagar lands face first onto the steps. That was an ouch moment, yeah. So Hagar tries to go in and kind of do like a big splash kind of thing in the corner, but Rhodes picks him up and launches him while he's standing in the corner out of the ring, and Hagar lands not just face first on the apron, but face first on the ring steps. So quite the bump by him. Jake can still move, and he's still up there, as a motivated athlete in the top 10 on anybody's pro wrestling book right now, and this is pretty good for him having his first real competitive match, in a long time. He had focused on the MMA stuff for a bit and was doing some independent bookings and so on and so forth for the past few years. Maybe 2015, 2016-ish. I'm not sure the exact date was his last, WWE televised match prior to this. But, still, if it's 2015, it's 5 years up to this point. So it's quite a bit of time. But He looked great. A 2-count code red by Dustin. He got the 2 count off the code red. The ankle lock submission attempt by Hagar is unsuccessful, but Hagar gets the submission win via the standing triangle Uranagi. So the match itself was 14:40 in length, and post-match, QT Marshall hits the ring to help Dustin out. Of course, Dustin and QT have been forming a tag team on Dark in recent weeks, so that looks like to be the next direction of Dustin's character. Maybe those are the two out of that kind of Nightmare family, Nightmare collective amalgamation now that it is, challenging whoever the tag team champs are, and we'll find out who those people are later on down the card. But then came a real headbanger here. Sammy Guevara taking on Darby Allin. This could be a show stealer, folks, and in my opinion, it's up there for sure. Another fantastic video vignette for Darby this pay-per-view. It's incredible how over he is. This match starts out hot. A plancha by Allin over the ring post, then a shotgun drop kick to Guevara on the outside. Jurassic Express shown at ringside. Jurassic Express has been kind of unofficially bonded with Darby Allin the past few weeks on Dynamite, in fights with the Inner Circle and in post-match beatdowns and such. So kind of natural to have the Jurassic Express at ringside during this thing. Allin tries to hit a plancha, which misses completely. Skateboard to the face by Sammy. That hurt. Looked like that hurt. And then all of a sudden, Sammy Guevara with an, oh my god, 630 senton through the table. Top rope Spanish fly by Guevara only lands a 2. But then an insane Canadian destroyer into the exposed turnbuckle. Stunner and coffin drop combo gets a 1-2-3 from Darby. And it was amazing how he rattled off those moves and how quickly they were. This dude to me is definitely the second coming of the Lightning Kid Sean Waltman in major promotions and in televised wrestling, if you will. I'm getting a very 1-2-3 Kid vibe from Darby Allin. It's the comparisons when you watch both of them is just unreal. Post-match, Allin goes for the skateboard, but Jake Hagar again shows up at ringside and pulls Guevara out of the ring. That feud I don't think is over, but Darby Allin firmly entrenched as a fan favorite in 2020 in AEW, and Sammy Guevara, one of the best heels they have on that roster, and they got a lot of good ones for sure. Then came the match that the entire internet today is buzzing about, the AEW Tag Team title match between the champions Kenny Omega and Adam Page, Hangman Adam Page, taking on the Young Bucks. Omega, of course, coming off the big Iron Man win over Pact in a TV Match of the Year candidate for sure on February 26, 2020, the last Dynamite, the go-home Dynamite going into this one. Some boos for the Bucks when they were introduced by Justin Roberts. A little bit of a head-turner. Respect shown between Nick and Omega, not so much between Adam and Matt, and this would be a pattern that would go through the entire match. And a little bit of dissension shown between Page and Omega, and they've been teasing that almost since they've won the titles a little bit. So the match starts, and a few of my favorite spots during this thing was there was an amazing 1-on-2 Northern Lights suplex by Matt Jackson on Hangman and Omega. Great tag team wrestling again by both teams, Hangman and Omega, for just kind of being put together here over the past month or so. They've honestly really have gelled as a tag team together. That's been a very interesting watch for sure. I don't want to say as good as the Golden Lovers, but I think they might soon, with enough seat time and enough match time together and that stuff. I think that they can not equal them, but maybe put themselves in maybe the same echelon of that type style of tag team a little bit. Giant moonsault to the outside by Page, really pretty moonsault to the outside. Crowd 1,000% behind Omega and Page, yes. 2 count off of the Dr. Bomb by Omega. Shout out to the late Dr. Death Steve Williams. Shout out to Marty Scurll as Hangman hits the chicken wing and complete with the little twirl and the huzzah into the chicken wing. But Matt hits a 450 to break that up and only gets a 2 count. Crowd big time into this one. A powerbomb V-trigger combo only gets 2 for Page and Omega, and that's how they've been kind of winning these tag matches here lately. Indie Taker on the ramp on Paige by the Bucks. That was incredible. A golden trigger attempt by the Bucks only lands one on Omega. Yeah, the Young Bucks started to bust out some Golden Lovers tag team tandem moves on Omega and Paige. That was a little bit of a head turner for sure. Paige breaks up the Meltzer driver attempt, and they nail a buckshot V-trigger combo. Again, another move that's put away teams on AEW Dynamite for, well, only 2. And Omega then goes for the one-winged angel, but can't due to shoulder damage incurred in the match. Paige tags in and hits a one-winged angel of his own, and only gets a 2 count to the astonishment of the live house and probably the astonishment of the people on pay-per-view. This is 30 minutes in now at this point, and shortly thereafter, 2 buckshot lariats, and Paige and Omega retain. What an incredible tag match that was, and post-match, Bucks try to shake hands, and Omega obliges. Hangman walks away, we think, and teases a buckshot attempt on Omega, but just prior to that, in the ring, the 3 founding members of the Elite, Omega and the Young Bucks, kind of stood across from Paige, and there was perfect distance for those 3 to land, that dreaded trio super kick maneuver that had landed them so many never open weight 6-man title reigns over in New Japan, and so many victories as a 6-man unit. This thing here is heating up big time. There is some fracturing major league happening in the Elite, in that faction, in amongst Hangman potentially branching out on his own and doing his own thing. Is he teasing a heel turn? I don't know, maybe not necessarily. Are the Bucks and Omega potentially teasing a heel turn? I think that might be the more likely scenario coming through here. We know that there is a War Games style match that this was announced during the pay-per-view coming up, I believe, March 22nd in Newark, New Jersey. We'll have to wait and see the sides, but the popular rumor out there right now is that it will be between the Elite and the Inner Circle. So if that's the case, maybe does some sort of betrayal angle go down there? Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. But this is very enthralling and awesome storytelling. Match of the night for sure. And the whole crowd just went bonkers over this. Up next on the card was the AEW Women's title match. The challenger, Chris Statlander, taking on the champion, Nyla Rhodes. Tony states that Statlander was under the weather going into this match, and actually the whole explanation of it is hilarious. You gotta listen to it. It's pretty funny. If you haven't seen the pay-per-view yet, definitely watch the explanation where Statlander is introduced about being under the weather. It kind of fits the character a little bit. It's funny how AEW established Nyla as this juggernaut off of the signing and the launch of the brand. Then they cooled her off immediately at Double or Nothing last year by bringing in Awesome Kong, and everybody thinking that Awesome Kong is going to be this juggernaut. And now they are building Nyla Rose up once again, to be a juggernaut because of pretty much the indecisiveness in this women's division. It's still kind of... it's got some solidity now, I think, with Rose as the champion, but... you're still trying to establish a lot of unproven, non-mainstream talent in this division. You're trying to sell this division with a lot of unproven mainstream talent out to the mainstream public at this point, whereas that's the one advantage your competitor has, is that you, with WWE and NXT, you can call up and bring down and whoever you want to pull a rating if you have to. Case in example, Survivor Series last year, Becky Lynch walking into NXT to confront Shayna Baszler. What else was there? There was, this whole Rhea Ripley, Charlotte Flair thing that's happening for WrestleMania. It's one of those things where that's the one disadvantage that AEW doesn't have right now. But I think that if there is either a rash or maybe 2 or 3 main roster female talent in WWE that have decided that, hey, that's it, WWE is not for us anymore, I think AEW will be calling them for sure and attempting to sign them onto their roster. And there's a few still beating around the indies right now that I'm shocked that AEW hasn't signed yet, like Tennille Dashwood for one, and maybe one or two other girls out there. But I think that they want, new talent that tells their type of stories involved in their storytelling. And I think that that's cool, but I also think that this is the detriment, is that you have matches like last night where it kind of seems that the women's title is the dead spot on the show. But anyway, back to the match analysis here. Statlander goes for a spear off of the opening bell and crashes and burns onto the outside. Statlander is fighting from behind now, and Rhodes is just basically ragdolling her. But Statlander gets a 2 count with 2 flying planches to the outside and a drop kick to Rhodes as they kind of toss Rhodes to the outside again. And some great back and forth sequences. Statlander tries a top rope hurricanrana that is blocked, and the top rope beast bomb gets the free for Nyla Rose. And the runtime for that one was 12:45. Again, good solid match. Crowd seemed dead, and that's just kind of my dissertation on that. Cody versus MJF, one of the selling points in this pay-per-view. This feud has been Ballistic, a potential feud of the year candidate when we do the Meltzers next winter. I'm sure Morehouse, my buddy, feels the same way. I haven't talked to him about this pay-per-view yet. I'm not even sure if he's seen it or not. MJF's got a robe. Nice. MJF spent a little too much time in a spray tan booth, though, looking for it. But compared to the appearance of his opponent, a botched spray tan is still a little better than a botched tattoo on the neck. Cody, what were you thinking, mate? Just, the tattoo is cool. The design is okay. That's your design. Roll with it. But on the neck, I don't know. That's definitely like a bicep or a shoulder tat, man. I wouldn't ever throw something on my neck like that. That's a little, but we'll see. But who knows? Not having tattoos myself, but hanging around with people who have a lot of tattoos, I think the cardinal rule of tattoos is you only fill up your neck if the rest of your body is filled and you have nowhere else on your body that you want to put a tattoo. So the fact that he had one tattoo on his pec and then walked in and did, the tattoo on his neck is kind of... Cody's going to Cody, I guess. But he's a good guy. I'm still a fan of him, but there's a few decisions he makes that they're minor ones. They're not major ones. But there's a few decisions that he makes that I just kind of sit and scratch my head at sometimes. I'm wondering, what's that poor boy doing? But, he's still good guy. Good guy. They also had Downstate playing Cody to the ring live in arena. They sounded a bit off. I don't think the mix was there. Again, we've seen this with some NXT takeovers in the past and that stuff with bands like Poppy and Code Orange and that stuff where, they are kind of, the mix seems a little off on TV, but I imagine it sounds better in arena. So I think that's just one of the risks you run with a live performance. See Motorhead at WrestleMania 17, where they didn't only have the mix off, but the pacing for Triple H's theme was completely off, and it sounded like a speed metal Rush cover version of it. But, God bless you, Lemmy. Miss you every day. Stephen Amell in the house in a Nightmare Family kind of blazer track jacket thing. So quite the fight camp again. We talked about Cody's ink. MJF at his heelish best after the bell. Best heel performance so far in 2020, no doubt. Running outside of the ring, going into the crowd, and coming back and grabbing somebody's beer and throwing it onto a fan member at ringside and that stuff. And, just this guy, again, he's up for heel of the year already, and it's February, March. So I can only imagine what the rest of 2020 will bring him. But, dude, best heel since Piper. He's definitely on that short list for sure. We've had a massive running clothesline by Cody in this match. A great face distraction by Brandy, dumping a beer on Wardlow at ringside and allowing Cody a plancha onto Wardlow, but MJF soon takes control again as Wardlow kind of turns the ties on Cody and beats him up on the outside and brings him back in. MJF with the Fargo strut, I kind of lulled, a little bit of a Jeff Jarrett influence Fargo strut a bit. MJF with the salt of the earth armbar, which is his old finisher. He turned that into a bow and arrow, but Cody reaches the ropes with his teeth. The psychology here was MJF was going after the toe that Cody broke in a cage match against Wardlow in Atlanta a couple weeks ago. So MJF bites down on the toe. MJF is busted open, shortly thereafter on the outside. The match turns a bit when Wardlow catches Brandy on a crossbody. Cody attempts a pump kick on Wardlow, who ducks, and Cody nails Arn. Cody fights back while Arn's down, getting attention from the doctors at ringside. I lull at the Dusty Rhodes-esque flip, flop, and fly influence. The crowd pop for it. A double cross by MJF only lands a 2. And then the finish of the match. After 2 crossroads, MJF blocks the third. Wardlow had snuck in the Dynamite Diamond ring, and MJF has it on his finger, uses it as like a knuckle duster, and smokes Cody in the forehead, knocking Cody out. And your classic heel victory with a free count. And MJF gets the shocking victory in front of the live audience, in front of the pay-per-view audience at AEW Revolution. So the feud will continue, I think. And I think that this feud may have a... it's got to have some bearing coming up with this big War Games-esque type thing that they're going to do in Newark on the 22nd of March. I think that obviously if it's Elite versus Inner Circle, I'm not sure if they're going to go 5-man teams or 4-man teams, but you can easily have the 4 Inner Circle members and MJF take on Cody, Hangman Page, Omega, and the Bucks in a War Games style match and just have the storylines explode in this thing. That show, I hope that show breaks 1 million on the ratings, because that would be amazing. I don't think it will, but you never know. We'll have to wait and see what they build up to for that. Then came the oddball match that nobody thought they'd see, but it ended up being really good. Pact versus Orange Cassidy. The match you didn't think you'd see is going to be. Orange Cassidy entrance is amazing. You got to check it out with the Best Friends music and that stuff. Of course, Trent and Chucky T in Orange's corner. I guess his wrestling gimmick is... Orange Cassidy's gimmick is someone who appears not to give a fuck in the ring, is very lackadaisical, just kind of... or out of it, and then all of a sudden turns the switch on and he becomes Sayama in the Tiger Mask gear from the early 80s, or early 90s Jushin Liger, basically the greatest junior heavyweight wrestler on the planet, or Sasuke or something like that. It's incredible. Cassidy out wrestling Pac. That was fun. Pac sends Cassidy into the ring post. I thought that they were going to go with another blood spot there. They didn't, thankfully. A no pulp chant. I popped over that. The Black Arrow attempt thwarted by a rollout. Great comedy spots involved here. Then Cassidy snaps. Then the switch in Cassidy's brain snaps again, and yet he has a overdrive level, which is unreal. Tope, crossbody, DDT, and only 2. A amazing combination of moves there. JR says this is the sleeper match of the card, and yeah, I have to kind of agree with that. Air Raid crash by Cassidy, only 2. I laughed at this comment too, Excalibur on commentary, with the ferocity of the noble fire ant. I see what you did there. Lucha Brothers hit ringside and attack the Best Friends, and that distraction allows Pac to hit the Brutalizer. Submission for Pac at, what was the runtime here? Wikipedia says the runtime was 13 minutes, but it was a solid 13 minutes. That felt like a longer match than it was. It was really good. So, the AEW War Games match, of course, announced for the 25th from the Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey on TNT. It's not AEW War Games still because they can't use the name War Games. They're going to call it AEW Blood and Guts. So again, that's going to be very interesting to see what ends up happening there. And that's over a week out from your competitor's biggest show of the year. So I think that this could potentially, we'll have to wait and see what happens on the 25th and see how NXT answers that, what they have for a card. But the 25th of March could be a very interesting night if you're a fan of good wrestling and both products of NXT and AEW. I think you want to set the PVRs for both shows that night. AEW title is on the line next as the champion, Le Champion, Chris Jericho takes on Jon Moxley. Record's crazy similar here, and this is where the record keeping slowly starts to make sense for AEW and the analytics. Mox sitting at an 11-1-1 record, Jericho with a 10-1-1 record, so virtually identical. Mox having one more match, one more singles victory than Jericho. Awesome entrance by Mox, a choir playing Jericho to the ring and singing Judas, and of course Jericho hitting the ring and getting the crowd to sing Judas along with the entrance music. Epic. That was a WrestleMania style entrance and they pulled it off. It was fantastic. Hockey fight to open. Jericho with a nod to his New Japan run with the old, I'm going to pick up the cameraman's camera after knocking him down and flip him off. I'm not going to flip you off because I like you guys, but you know what I mean. So, both men make alludes to their storyline injuries. Mox bites Jericho's stitches from Wednesday, and Jericho runs Mox into a ring post and busts him open right above the quote-unquote blinded eye and the eye patch that Mox was wearing. Mox still rebounds with a leg vice and a planche to the outside. Ortiz, though, hits Mox with the mad ball, and Jericho hits the lion salt for only a 2 count. That was an ooh-ah moment. But then standing at ringside, Hagar, while Mox is draped over the ropes later in the match, delivers a forearm shiver in which ref Aubrey Edwards sees. She dispatches the inner circle, throws them out at ringside. While that's happening, Sammy Guevara runs through the crowd and knocks Mox out with the belt and takes off through the crowd once again. Only 2. And then we have a kind of a production botch. You might see it on Botchamania, where we see a close-up of Mox kind of gigging himself, where he's trying to cut his eye open a little bit more, again with a razor blade or whatever. And then we hit the finish of the match, and this was spectacular. Mox hits the paradigm shift and removes the eye patch. He had been playing possum the entire time. He hits another paradigm shift. 1, 2, 3. Mox wins his first world title run, I think, since 2017 was his WWF title loss, and I think that's when he lost it back to AJ Styles for the final time over on SmackDown Live. So it's been a couple years since Mox has held a world title, and it's good to see him again with the gold. Pro Wrestling Tees not wasting any time on the merch. Mox shirt is available right now, so if you go to AEWshop.com, you can go pick that up. Post-match, Mox hits the music, thanks to the fans, and says that this belongs to you. 12-0-1 record for the champ right now. He is undefeated in AEW competition since signing last year. And we head now towards the big AEW Blood and Guts special on March 25th. And after that, Double or Nothing weekend in May in Vegas at the MGM Grand Garden Arena. The whole pay-per-view has a runtime of 3 hours, 32 minutes, and 15 seconds. My rating out of 10 on this show, I was debating a little bit between an 8 and a 9 for this, so I think I'm going to sit in the middle of it and give it an 8.5 out of 10. I think that the women's division still needs a ton of work. The crowd was very dead, and it kind of resembled a old concession break match from WWE days of yore during a pay-per-view and that stuff with the women's title. I think it could be a lot more, and other promotions have proven that it could be a lot more than it is right now with their women's divisions. But yeah, I think that that's one of the major concerns they have. The rest of the pay-per-view, though, was unmatched in quality so far this year. Maybe Wrestle Kingdom was, on the same level, but definitely nothing that WWE has cranked out so far this year can touch that level. Maybe the men's Rumble match a little bit, and maybe the last takeover as well, kind of on its footsteps a little bit. But this was the best top to bottom show, along with both nights of Wrestle Kingdom, I thought, of 2020 so far. And yeah, I'm going to land at an 8.5 out of 10 for that one. So anyways, what did you think of AEW Revolution? Put it in the comment box below, the comments below, or tweet me on Twitter at Killer Nitro. You know how to get me on all the socials. The links are right down there. Talk to you guys next time. Later days, happy wrestling watching. I'm Killer Nitro. We'll see you next time on Nitromaniac TV's Wrestling Unlimited.